Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Katie and Siegfried Show, where we discuss the extended version of the Fellowship of the Ring, which is the first Lord of the Rings movie.
Yeah, so I think we'll kind of rotate back and forth. There's a couple things that we want to break down for our review. First of all, I thought of a couple things that would be fun to talk about as we journey through these. We are going to do this with The Hobbit, but of course, since we watched it all, we didn't do the podcast episode after each film. It's a little harder, but for these three, I wanted to go through, like, who are your favorite character in the Fellowship? It's okay to have people tie. Second of all, who I felt, and potentially you as well if you disagree or agree, who I felt like was the most influential in the movie in terms of, like, they got the most action or most scenes or something like that.
Most screen time.
Right. Which might not be exactly accurate to the movie in the sense that, like, I might talk about a certain character who gets a lot of screen time and not talk about another one just because of the merit that one of them, this is specifically tying into, like, why they're my favorite character, right? So, like, for that film. This was very hard to pick, but, like, yeah, we also want to talk about, probably not going to hit every extended scene or every added scene, but we want to hit a couple of the highlights. And then I will discuss certain things that I forgot. With luck, they're not anything that was added. So we'll start with Katie. Who is your favorite character out of the first film?
That is a good question. I am always slightly partial to Aragorn, because he takes charge when Gandalf is caught up doing things, and I just really appreciate him taking charge, because I can very much relate to that. I am very much I like to take charge type of person, and I really appreciated that.
And the fact that he saves them.
Yes, and the fact that he saves them.
Certain doom several times.
Yes.
That was one thing I actually...
it's only the first film.
Right. That's one thing I actually like about this movie is actually the entire trilogy, and same thing with The Hobbit. Like, every character at some point saves somebody else, right? So, like, in this film, Legolas saves Aragorn saves, like, so on and so forth. They're saving each other back and forth in different fights from different things, and even the Hobbits actually get some action. Like, Merry and Pippin climb onto the troll and stab it repeatedly. And then in other fights, they're not as active.
Yes.
Which is fair, because they don't have the combat experience, but they're still trying. They're throwing rocks at orcs, knocking them down for a little bit, and, like, in some cases knocking them unconscious completely, and, like, it's very helpful, and it's nice to see, like, all the characters are trying their hardest, even though some of them have more experience than others.
Yes.
For my favorite character, I'd say it's a three-way tie. So I'd say it was Aragorn, because there's so much he does in this film relative to the other characters. The second one would be Gandalf, because, of course, he sets basically the entire series into motion, both in The Hobbit and here.
Yeah.
And I am a little more biased to Gandalf, and my third favorite, third one tied for first place, which is Bilbo, based on the Hobbit. But also, even if you hadn't... Because, like, I read the books, I saw all the movies, but, like, even if you just started with Lord of the Rings and you didn't read the books and just see the film, it does a very good job of being like, Bilbo did some crazy adventures.
Yeah, this is actually something interesting that I noticed, or actually you pointed out about Bilbo this time. Like, Bilbo, like, really ages, like, after he gets rid of the rain. Like,
right, so you mind if I jump in here real quick?
Sorry.
I want to add some context to this. So Gandalf comes and Bilbo looks phenomenally good for an old man. He's like 111 years old. I don't know the average age of a hobbit when they pass, but the point is he looks phenomenally good for his age, because we see flashbacks of the Hobbit, and this is before the new Hobbit movies came out, so obviously it's not Martin Freeman, it's the same actor, and he basically just looks like he has a couple extra wrinkles and his hair turned white. Yeah. That's basically it. But like Katie mentioned, Gandalf forces him to give up the One Ring, and all of a sudden, he just looks like he aged like 50, 60 years. And it gets way, way, way more obvious when they get to Rivendell and they see Bilbo again, and he really does look his age.
Yeah.
And he even mentions it to Frodo and actively shows, like, there's pain in his, like, back. And, like, you can tell, like, age has finally... And he mentions it. Age has finally caught up to him. And it's, like...
Yeah.
Because the ring was slowing down that aging process.
And you also notice that he's not as mentally sharp as he used to be.
Right. And, like... But, like, yeah, it was just... It was such a dramatic... I think they did a great job. Like, I never noticed it before until this showing. When, like, he's talking to Gandalf and he gave him the ring and, like, he's standing outside his house as he's about to head off to Rivendell. And he just looks significantly older. And I thought maybe it was the lighting at first, and then they pointed out in Rivendell and he looks even older there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, like I was not the lighting. I was right. The aging is like bam because the magic of the ring is no longer with him.
Yeah. So I did a quick Google search, and apparently the average age, like the typical like life expectancy of hobbits in Middle Earth is somewhere between 95 and 100.
Okay, so he's what, like 111. So he's definitely older than their average lifespan, which is not unheard of, but it's not exactly, normal. Also, like we said, he's very spry and acting like he hasn't aged a day since The Hobbit.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, in Rivendell, you can really tell, like, he's like, he's like, man, everything hurts. Like, I gotta slowly sit down, and, like, his hand goes to his back. Like, you can tell that he's rapidly aging, and I'm not sure if he quite understands it was from the ring. He probably does. He's not an idiot, but, like, I don't know, how much he realizes. Like, he does seem to understand it after, like, he freaks out at Frodo. He wants the ring. And then, like, almost immediately, like, just starts breaking down and apologizing. Like, I'm sorry for everything, like, this is all my fault. When in reality, it's not his fault. I mean, you could argue, had he given the ring to Gandalf, a lot of this wouldn't have happened. But on the other hand, like Gandalf mentioned to Frodo, don't give me the ring. Like, if I have it, it could do horrible things.
Same thing with Galadriel.
Yes. She actually mentioned that she passed the test by declining it.
Yeah.
But anyways, the point being, like, yeah, you could argue, like, oh, if he gave the ring to Gandalf and the Hobbit, like, this Lord of the Rings wouldn't have happened. Yes, but it most likely would have corrupted Gandalf, and things would have turned out far worse.
I mean, it's not like he necessarily would have given it to Gandalf. Maybe if something would have happened where instead of Frodo going out and destroying it, it would have been Bilbo.
Potentially, but we don't know.
Yes.
But, like, realistically, Bilbo would have, if he was going to hand it over, he would have handed it over. And been like, sorry, like, and then would Gandalf have given it back? That's
Fair,
a good question. But let's circle back to Lord of the Rings.
But what I was saying was that Gandalf, he's worried that he would corrupt him, so that's why he wouldn't have taken it and would have sent
right,
Bilbo on.
But he didn't know what it was at the time.
Fair, but that's what I'm saying. If Bilbo had said anything,
he still might not have known it was the One Ring.
Fair.
Because he didn't find that out until he did all that research in Lord of the Rings.
Fair.
But anyways, moving back, yeah. So those three are my favorites. I think the reason Bilbo is one of my favorites is just because of The Hobbit and, like, having read the books and seen all the movies. He's such a fascinating character, and I love him so much. But they do a good job of giving, like, his backstory, even briefly. Like, you clearly don't know everything that happened. You know that he went to the Lonely Mountain. You know there was a dragon. You know there were dwarves. He got the chain, the mithril armor from the Dwarven King, Thorin. So you hear all this, like, background stuff and it's like, whoa, that's really cool. But if you haven't seen The Hobbit or haven't read the book, you don't get the full gravity. But they do a good job of at least being like, hey, like, Bilbo has done stuff. Like, he has done some crazy stuff and had some crazy adventures and, like, and so, yeah, I just love him. He's such a great character. Yeah. Moving on. Let's go to extended scenes or added scenes. There was the one that I caught was the scene where Frodo and Samwise are in the forest on their own. I believe this is before they meet Aragorn.
I'm not sure which scene you're referring to. So.
The elves in the forest.
Oh, yes.
And they see elves marching, and they're almost ethereal, and Sam mentions, like, it makes him really sad. And that they're marching off to the I forget what it's called, but like basically their version of an afterlife.
Yeah.
There's like some kind of like, it's like some faraway land on the planet, but like it's sort of like an afterlife for elves. Once you go there, you never come back. And if I remember right, at the end of the series, you know, a whole bunch of our characters go there, but we're not there yet, and I don't remember 100%. So
2 movies from now.
we'll wait until we get there. But that was interesting because that was definitely new to me. I hadn't seen that before, so that was definitely extended.
Yeah. And also
or added, excuse me.
When I forget, I think this was at like or when they were with the elves. Everyone was with the elves. There's this statue of a lady that Aragorn really admires that was extended as well. Or
yes,
as well.
it was his mother.
Yes, his mother.
What's his name? The Elven King. Elrond, yes. He actually mentions that it was Aragorn's mom.
That's right.
Because he gives us some backstory on her. Yeah, it was funny because I think the only thing I did not remember, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't the theatrical version, was that Gollum was tracking them and following them throughout the film. They mentioned it a couple times, and I completely, for whatever reason, did not remember that at all. I bet you it's in the theatrical release. I don't remember, but like, it makes sense because like, you know, he was also hunting for the ring, so like, you know.
Yeah, and Gollum told, you know, the bad guys, Baggins, Shire.
Yeah, after he was tortured, he gave them the location of the ring and who had it last. And then like Gandalf speculated maybe he was released to help. I think it was Gandalf who speculated that to help track them down.
Yeah.
Because he's gonna pursue it endlessly, like almost like the ring race, but for different reasons. Because he wants it for himself, because he's just been completely taken over by the power of it, and the ring race, of course, worked for Sauron. Yeah, I think the movie had some good. It has a good mix of everything. There's some good humor in there with you know, second breakfast, Merry and Pippin stealing the
fireworks.
They also have some good horror in there with the Eye of Sauron. It always creeped me out as a kid, and it's still
and Bilbo's face.
Bilbo's face at Rivendell when he wants the ring back and is creepy, and then Gollum is a little creepy here because we only see his eyes. It's not as creepy since I've seen the rest of the movies. Like, I know what he looks like. Yeah. But like, on a first viewing, that was probably extremely creepy. Yeah, the Eye of Sauron's always creepy. And then the ring race were really scary when they go into when you see like their ghostly form. Yeah. And they stab Frodo with their blade. That is always creepy. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because they blend all these like horror and action and comedy and to an extent drama.
There's a reason why it's PG-13.
Yeah, but like what I'm saying is like they blend all these different things so well. It just feels so natural. It doesn't feel like it's not like jerking you around from genre to genre. It's like, no, this fits in this situation.
What was the video that you were telling me about when we were watching the movie? The one where it was about Sam. Oh
yeah, there's this great video on YouTube. It's like 10 hours long, and about 30 to 40 minutes into the movie, I think in the extended edition it's probably slightly later, Frodo and Sam are going off on their quest, right? And Sam's like, you know, like, if I take one more step, this is the farthest I will ever have been from the Shire. And so the video's premise is anytime Sam takes a step towards Mordor, towards Mount Doom, it goes back and plays that clip.
For the entire series or just the first
film? For the first film.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if he'll ever do the second and third film, but it is really well edited. If you actually watch it, I think I got through 3 hours once before I went mad, and I preferred listening to my tinnitus over that at that point. But I read some of the comments, and someone noted that like there are times when Sam either takes a step back or falls over or something backwards, and of course the clip does not play because he's not going towards Mount Doom. Yeah. The whole gimmick is, of course, only when he takes a step forward. And I watched another video of this guy who actually sat through the entire video, and he talked to the video creator. He said it was very like a hypnotic experience, and like he had to keep himself awake by like writing down every time it happened. and
How many
stuff.
times did it happen?
I don't remember. It was some unbelievably long amount. There's the one of the scenes towards the end of the film that's about like 30 seconds maybe between Sam and Frodo took like 2 hours.
Oh no.
Because like yeah, I love the video. It's really horrible. I would never suggest anyone watch it because it's like one of the worst things ever. I mean, I watched 3 hours of it and I was going insane.
Yeah, there was this one video. It's from one of the later movies. I don't remember if it's 2 from 3, and it's just a loop of Legolas saying, "I'm taking the hobbits to Isengard."
Yes.
For like a couple hours.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I say it's like the worst thing ever, like it is simultaneously a horrible thing and a hilarious thing. Like the best part is like the first like 30 to 40 minutes, literally you're just watching the movie.
Yeah.
And then it just starts looping with Sam's. Yes. But yeah, it was very funny, and it just reminded me like when I saw that scene in the movie, I was like, oh no, it's happening. We got tricked. We turned on the video. Oh no, and then it didn't happen, of course. But yeah. So I'd say like I'm a huge fan in fantasy of like dwarves in general. So like I like Gimli a lot.
Yeah.
He's not given terribly much to do in this film. In terms of like screen time, the major thing he gets is like Moria and the Mines of Moria when he finds all of his brethren are dead, and I believe his cousin Balin. Somehow he's related to Balin, who was the king of Moria.
Yeah, I think they're cousins.
I think it's cousins, yeah. And of course he finds his tomb, and you know, I'm not saying like that's not a big moment, right? But like over the course of the film, that's about the biggest scene that he gets. The rest of the film, he's kind of just there, like as part of the group, and like it's more Aragorn, Frodo getting big scenes, and Gandalf.
Yeah.
In the second and third film, of course, they do a much better job of like swapping people in and out. Like the Two Towers, Legolas and Gimli have their fun gimmick of like, hey, I got like 14 kills. How many do you got? You know.
And didn't they split one?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get to it when we get to the film, but yeah, like they get more time there, and like they definitely get more time in the third film too. Like, but like on the other hand, it's also one of those things where it's kind of like, hey, we got to set up our characters and like our backstories for everybody. Like, we don't really have time to like jump back and forth between everybody, so it's kind of like. And they do a good job in like the action scenes of like everyone's doing something and like saving each other's lives. And like I said,
whether it be the dwarves, the hobbits throwing rocks at the orc,
or stabbing the cave troll in the head,
the cave troll in the head, or
Sam hitting an orc with a pan.
Oh, I forgot about that.
That was absolutely hilarious, and he's like, "I'm getting good at this."
And I was very confused as to where the pan came from.
Yeah, it was a cooking pan.
Yeah.
He was carrying it on his back, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
just in the moment, I was like, where did the pan come from?
It was,
is this Tangled or something?
So, yeah, I mean, like, I'll give them credit where it's due. Like, they do a good job of shuffling characters in the action scenes. They don't, you know, and it never felt like, oh, Aragorn saved everybody. It was like, oh, Aragorn saved Frodo, and then Legolas saves Aragorn, and then Gimli saves Legolas, and then Aragorn's, you know, like, it's kind of rotating, which is realistic, you know, like, in combat, and also, like, it really wouldn't matter who saved who the most. Like, you're all saving each other's lives, so, like, you know.
Nobody's dead. Or, I mean, Boromir's dead, but...
Well, yeah, in that particular action scene, no one died. They all saved each other's lives.
Fair.
But, yes, Boromir's death is, it's very tragic, because, like, he spends the majority of the film being very antagonistic. Like, you know, he's depressed because he's lost hope, and they won't let him use the One Ring as a weapon.
Yeah.
And then later he's like, we don't need a king in Gondor. And then when he dies, he's like, I was wrong. I would have followed you as a king, you know. And I think he does have a slight slimmer of hope there at the end. At least I hope so. I don't think it's exactly 100% clear. He kind of like, I think it's more like regret over his decisions than him actually thinking there's hope for the world.
Yeah, because he starts demanding where... I think it's more regret because like, he starts demanding where Frodo is, and everyone's like, we don't quite know where Frodo is right now.
But also, like, that means Frodo's more likely safe.
Yeah.
Because they saw the Hobbits getting taken. Merry and Pippin.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it's very interesting because, like, the film ends on it's actually not as depressing as you think. Because, yes, it is depressing. The Fellowship's broken apart. You know, Merry and Pippin are taken. Boromir's dead. Frodo and Sam are on their own. We're completely split up. But, Frodo and Sam are making progress. That's good. Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn are going after Merry and Pippin. So there is hope that our characters will be saved. I mean, obviously, we all know how the story ends. Yeah. But, like, I used to think it was a very depressing ending. But now, looking back on it, like, after seeing it again, like, yeah, it's kind of bittersweet. Because it's like, okay, Boromir's dead. Merry and Pippin are in severe danger. But our overall quest is still going well. Sam and Frodo are going ahead with the ring. That's great. Our 3 other heroes in the party are heading towards saving 2 of the other members, and they're not going to be killed until they at least get to Saruman and he can question them. Yeah. So there's time, and yes, of course, Gandalf at this point is presumed dead, fate unknown. I mean, obviously we know, since we've seen the rest of them and we've read the books, like, we know what happens to him, but, like,
he's not dead.
At this point in the series, it's kind of, like, who knows? Yeah. He did fall down after Balrog. We didn't see him die, but again, if you hadn't seen anything else, you'd presume he's dead. Yeah. Like the rest of the characters do. Yeah. It's, I was telling Katie, it's kind of like this character, I can't remember the character's name in Wheel of Time. Spoilers for that book series. She ends up in a battle with an evil sorcerer, and they both fall through, like, I think it was like a portal or something, and, like, they're both presumed dead. And then she shows up a couple books later. I can't remember exactly how she survived. But it's kind of like Gandalf. Like, he shows up later, and, like, everyone's just like, wait, how?
Excuse me?
But yeah, it was also very interesting because, like, coming back to The Hobbit versus Lord of the Rings, like, Saruman the Hobbit definitely seems... At first he's skeptical, of course, that Sauron's coming back. Then he helps them fight him back. But, like... at least I felt when I was watching The Hobbit, I felt like there was a little bit of a hint that, like, Saruman's not necessarily going to be on our side. And, of course, in Lord of the Rings, we've come to find out he's not on our side at all. Yeah. On the side of the good, I mean.
Wait, so there were hints in The Hobbit?
It kind of felt like that to me.
Oh, really? I haven't read the book in a while.
No, in the movie, I meant.
Oh, in the movie, okay. What sorts of hints were you thinking of?
Like, he just kind of seemed to, like, downplay a lot of it,
That's fair.
Which fair. I'm like, okay, on the one hand, it could just be like him saying, like, I don't believe you, where's your proof? But on the other hand, it also could be him like, shh, like, no, let's ignore that and pretend that doesn't, he's trying to help him build up. But one other thing I do want to say before but yeah, like, it's very obvious here, like, he's definitely under the control of Sauron.
It's very explicit.
Yeah, it's very quickly very explicit. Yeah. And then it very much becomes like, all right, I'll just say it outright. Yeah. Because, Gandalf touches the Palantir and sees the Eye of Sauron, and, like, he's like, that, Saruman's kind of hinting that he's evil, and that he's joined up. But, like, at that point, like, Gandalf knows, and Saruman knows Gandalf knows, and then it's just like, all right, I'll straight up just be honest, like, I'm on his side. Yeah. Like, we don't have a choice. We got to join up. But one thing I want to mention before we move on and wrap this up, at least on my end, is very interesting. One scene that is not in the third film, not even in the extended edition, is the Scouring of the Shire. When Saruman and Wormtongue are there, and they've enslaved the people. And then
isn't that later, though?
It's in the third film.
Oh, I thought you were saying it was in this film.
But it's not in the movie. Or it would have been in the third film. It's not in the movies. It's in the books. Okay. Towards the end of the books.
Could it be actually, it is at the end of the book.
No, it's not.
Okay.
And I'll explain why. Yeah, so, like, Merry and Pippin come back after the war, and, like, they lead the revolution, basically, against Saruman and Wormtongue. And Wormtongue eventually kills Saruman, and then Wormtongue gets killed before anyone can stop it. Yeah. And, a lot of people die, hobbits die. It's, like, the first war that the hobbits have seen in, like, hundreds of years. Yeah. And, like, it changes the entire reason Frodo goes off to the Undying Lands or whatever they're called.
I believe they're called Undying Lands.
Because he kind of goes into a depression over the whole thing, plus everything he's already been through. Yeah. But, like, he just feels like, like, nothing can ever go back to what it was. Whereas in the movie, when we get to the third one, it's very much a happy ending. They come home, and, like, this place has been untouched. Yeah. It is wonderful. Everyone's completely blissfully ignorant about what just went on. Yeah. Yeah, and, like, the reason was, like, Peter Jackson, the director, was saying it would be wild whiplash. Because, like, you're going from, like, Aragorn just became king to, like, holy crap, the Shire's on fire, like, there's massive, like, pain and suffering here, like, and he's just like, it didn't really fit. And, like, so in that instance, like, Frodo's more depressed because of the journey that he just had and, like, you know, the PTSD and all that.
Yeah. Oh, something else I would like to mention. You mentioning, that sequence is completely left out of the third movie made me think of Tom Bombadil.
Tom Bombadil, yeah, he's not in the movies.
He was left out, and I was mad.
He's a very odd character. He doesn't really add in the sense of, like, the story, but he's a very fun character, and it's just interesting to have, like, a weird character like that and just be like, what the heck just happened?
Yeah.
And, like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
He reminded me kind of Radagast in the Hobbit films.
That's fair.
In the sense that, like, it's this weird, crazy guy. He's very eccentric, and he's talking, like, riddles and stuff, and you're like, what is, like, I don't know what this dude is doing. I mean, Radagast is, of course, very different in the Hobbit and versus Tom Bombadil, but, like, in the same sense that, like, they're both very much out there kind of characters.
Yeah, but I just was like, okay, like, Radagast was briefly mentioned in The Hobbit, but he doesn't really show up, at least if I remember correctly. In the
films.
Books. In the books.
Right, in the books, yeah.
But then he shows up in the movies, but for Tom Bombadil was kind of the opposite. He was talked about a lot in the books, and then he was, like, not really...
I think part of it could have just been that, like, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. 1 second. Okay. We're back. Sorry, I had to take a quick break to answer the door. Yeah. Tom Bombadil is an interesting omission from the films. I think part of it is just, like, at this point they were so stuffed with so much stuff to do that, like... And he doesn't really impact the story terribly much, so it's kind of like that's an easy thing to omit when you have so much going on.
Yeah.
The reason I mentioned the Scouring of the Shire now versus in the third movie is because, like, it just came to mind, and I wanted to talk about it, make sure that, like, that was covered at least in one of the videos, or on one of our podcasts, because, like, I don't know if I'll remember it by that point, because there is so much to unpack in the third film.
Yes.
That I might not be able to, like, remember that fact. So I just wanted to throw that out there here. But yeah, it is interesting, because, like, the first film is really... We're not going to feel like... It's one of the, like... It has the longest stretch of, like, feel-good stuff until the third one, I feel.
Yeah.
Because the second one, you know, there's the siege and all that's going on, and, like, it's rough until, of course, Gandalf comes in and saves the day, but that's at the end of the movie. And then the third one, there's a lot of heavy stuff going on until the end.
Yeah, you know, people...
Which, to be fair, like, the ending is great, but, like, I feel like the first one has the longest stretch of, like, feel-good stuff. Just also, I'm just really partial to the Shire. And, like, the whole, like, calmness of, like, Hobbits, like...
Yes.
It's just, you know, I don't think anything could reach that height again. Like, yes, I know we go back to the Shire in the third one at the end. But, like, I don't think anything can go back to, like... Especially because our characters have been through so much, like...
Yeah.
We'll never have this view of their life ever again.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I had a lot of fun.
Fun fact, if you ever go to New Zealand, go visit Hobbiton. It's a place...
Yes.
Like, it's open to the public every day.
Oh, apparently. You also said when we were watching the movie that Gandalf hitting his head at least once was not intentional.
Yeah, I think even the time he hit his head on it was either the chandelier or the...
My best guess would be the wall. Because I think the chandelier was intended, because he, like, kind of bumps it and he's like, oops, well, you know, and, like, taps it. But then when he hits the wall, he's like, ah! And then, like, he just keeps going like nothing happened. And it's like, that felt to me like a real, like, I actually just hit myself.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, the chandelier, I think, was supposed to be a funny moment where, like, oops, you know. And then I think that was supposed to show how the house is small, but he accidentally hit his head, I think, is what happened.
Yeah, but... Yeah.
But that's pretty... I mean, it's pretty funny, because, like, this is probably what would happen to someone, like, a human versus, like, a hobbit. I also find it funny how Bilbo... acts basically like he did in The Hobbit, where he's like, hey, you want tea, you want cheese, like, what do you want? at least in The Hobbit, there's the difference of, like, there's that downtime between, like, okay, there's dwarves in my house for some reason, to, like, okay, let me try to feed you. But, like, with Gandalf, of course, it's, like, immediate. But it is still kind of funny that, like, you know, Bilbo still, despite the Hobbit, despite him not, you know, quite understanding, like, that they should be in his house, he's trying to be a hospitable host.
Yeah, he was...
I mean, at one point, though, in The Hobbit, like, you know, like, they start eating, like, everything, and he gets a little upset, obviously, but, like, you know, it was just nice to see that, like, throughout all these years, he's still a hospitable host, and, like, you know, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun to rewatch it, and it was really good to see the extended edition, because I'd never seen it before. I understand why they cut the elves walking through the forest scene, because while it is relevant later in the series, it doesn't really add to the first film.
Which doesn't add to the first film?
When the elves are walking through the forest, going to the, you know...
I thought you were talking about something else for a hot second. I was confused.
In the context of the trilogy, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But, like, as for just the first film alone, it's kind of like, okay, like, sure, that happened, I guess. Like, knowing the greater context of the books and the films, like, sure, it's fine to add in there, but, like, I can totally see why that was, like, easy to be like, that one doesn't need to be here.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So my favorites for the first one, Gandalf, Bilbo, Aragorn.
Mine is Aragorn.
Alright, and so the plan is to go through each one and try to be like, okay, like here's things I didn't remember. Here's my favorite character as of this film. That could mean... I'm going to try to separate it into two piles. So pile 1 will be my favorite character for film 1 plus 2, and then 1 plus 2 plus 3, and then my favorite character per film.
Oh, okay, that's a good way to do it.
So, right now, my favorite characters for film 1 would be those 3. I think, if I had to guess for the trilogy, I'd probably say Gimli will probably be up there, and Gandalf, of course. I mean, Gandalf's kind of a given. Yeah. He's kind of cheating, though, because he's got the Hobbit, too, and also his whole mythos from the books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, an interesting, debate that Siegfried and I got into while watching the movies is who looks better, Merry or Pippin? And we had to have very different ideas on who looks better.
Well, I mean, in my case, it's more like who's less ugly, because I can't really judge men outside of whether they're ugly.
Fair.
So it's more like one of them is uglier than the other.
You said that Merry looked better than Pippin, and I was like, excuse you.
No, I said Merry was less ugly than Pippin.
Okay, Merry looks less ugly than Pippin, and I was like, excuse you.
You're wrong. To be fair, none of the actors are exactly, like, you know, ugly people. I'm just saying, like, you know, if you had to, like, scale this kind of stuff. Well, yeah. I do think they also extended... The only other time I think there was an extended scene that I know offhand, I think some of the stuff with Galadriel was extended.
Yeah.
Which, you know... I do find it very amusing that, like, Gimli at first is very much like, oh, I don't want anything except to, like, look at you, like, you're so beautiful, like, she's the most beautiful woman ever. And then, like, he's like, well, actually, I do have something I'd like to ask for. And I thought, like, oh, Gimli's gonna be like, can you guys, like, forge me a new shield or something? But he asked for, like, a lock of her hair.
Yeah.
And then it's very, like I said, the movie's funny. It comes back to it later, like, Gimli's in the boat, and, like, he's just, like, kind of talking to himself almost about how gorgeous she is. And Legolas is just sitting back smiling. And it was a funny moment.
Yeah. Oh, another thing that was added was when everyone was walking out of Elrond's house, and Frodo was, like, leading, and he's like, Gandalf,
Which way to Mordor?
Left or right to Mordor? Which way? Help.
Yeah, I think those little additions are actually not bad, because it is, like, you know, you feel more sympathetic to the character.
Yeah.
I think. Because, like, you already feel a lot of sympathy for Frodo, but, like, then just seeing these, like, glimpses of him being, like, completely, like, I don't know what I'm, like, really is a fish out of water kind of thing. And, like, yeah, that makes the breaking of the Fellowship so much more devastating. Because it's, like, okay, like, Frodo and Sam clearly don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And, like, now they're literally on their own.
Yeah, it's the farthest they've ever been from the Shire.
Yeah, and, like, you know, yeah. But, yeah, okay. I think that wraps it up for me.
Like, comment, subscribe. Oh, we have an email. Fun fact. So,
You want to share it?
khsrshow@gmail.com.
All right, fantastic. We will see you guys next time. Probably Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, but if not, there's a couple other topics we might do in the meantime. Kind of tricky right now to figure out when we'll be able to watch that one because these movies are
very long.
More than 3 hours a pop, I think.
Yeah, but the runtime I think includes the fan credits.
That's true. It does include credits, and this time around the credits were approximately 20-some minutes.
Yeah.
So, keeping that in mind. But still, they're very long, so it's not like we can just watch these every night.
Fair, yeah. Sleep is mildly useful.
We'll see when we can squeeze it in. If not, we might have something else for the podcast. But, yeah. Those are our thoughts so far. I'm very interested to see whether my prediction that Gimli becomes my favorite character by the end holds water or not. I mean, I'm a big fan of dwarves in fantasy, so he kind of gets a leg up there. I always play a dwarf. If I play any kind of fantasy game, I always try to play a dwarf because I just like dwarves. I like underground giant cave dwellings. In Minecraft, I always build a giant cave house. That's the first thing I do every time.
Oh,
and
really?
I just live there forever. Yeah, I don't know why. In real life, I don't like caves. But in fantasy, I think it's because, dwarves, build such... we see in Moria, they build absolutely massive structures and,
That's fair.
You can literally live your entire life down there and be fine. And, it's well-lit, etc. This is not... real-life caves, I would not want to live in a real-life cave.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. Dwarves have nice houses.
But yeah, it was very nice to see... We got to see, we saw glimpses of human dwellings, which was cool. We saw Bree. We saw, I think, Minas Tirith when Gandalf travels there. We see the Hobbits with the Shire. We see the Moria with dwarves, which obviously they're not living there anymore because they're all dead. But, and we also see Rivendell and a couple other elven places. So it did a very good job of, here's all our major races, and, we'll give you glimpses of how they live, which was cool, too.
Yeah, which was cool.
Well, yeah. I know we already signed off a little earlier, but hey, we had some extra thoughts for you. So, until next time.
Enjoy, like I said, comment, subscribe, be like my dad and my aunt.
Have a great day.